Jessica and Liam's story began as a romantic fairy tale that many people dream of. They met when Jessica was only 18 years old and Liam was 22. Liam immediately won her over with his charm, kindness, and self confidence. For Jessica, he became the embodiment of her dream: reliable, loving, and loyal. Their relationship developed rapidly, and 2 years later, after many happy moments and unforgettable trips, Liam proposed to her. Jessica was over the moon when she heard the cherished words. She knew that Liam was the man she wanted to spend the rest of her life with. Their wedding was a true celebration. Everything seemed perfect on the day, from the weather to every moment of the ceremony. Jessica looked dazzling in her white dress, and Liam couldn't take his eyes off her. They said their vows to the rapt attention of their guests, promising each other love and fidelity for the rest of their lives. At that moment, neither Jessica nor Liam could not even imagine that serious trials were ahead of them. After the wedding, the newlyweds went on a honeymoon to a tropical island where they spent 2 weeks in a paradise atmosphere. Jessica, like any young wife, thought about the future, about how she and Liam would build their family. They both wanted children, but decided to wait a little while to enjoy each other and get used to their new roles as husband and wife. Back home, Jessica made an appointment with her doctor to discuss contraception. The doctor recommended the Nueva ring, explaining that it was a safe and convenient way to avoid unwanted pregnancy. Jessica, trusting the medical advice, agreed, not realizing that this decision would be the beginning of a nightmare. A few days after starting to use the ring, Jessica began to notice changes in her body. She began to suffer from morning sickness and a feeling of constant fatigue. At first, she put it down to the stress of the wedding and the flight, but as time went on, her anxiety began to increase. She remembered the doctor's words that the ring didn't offer full protection for the first 72 hours, and that made her even more anxious. Liam noticed that something was wrong and suggested that she see a doctor, but Jessica assured him that everything was fine, blaming her condition on adjusting to her new stage of life. A week passed, and Jessica continued to feel ill. At one point, she was overcome with doubt and decided to take a pregnancy test. When a faint second stripe appeared on the test, Jessica felt the world collapse around her. Panic and fear filled her mind. At a loss, she removed the ring, not knowing what to do next. That same night, she began to bleed heavily, and terror gripped her. She was sure she had lost a child she may not have even realized she was expecting. Jessica told Liam what had happened, but her soul was filled with guilt. She felt like it had been her decision to use the ring that had caused the miscarriage. Liam tried to reassure her and offered to go to the hospital, but Jessica refused. She couldn't bear the thought that the doctors might confirm her worst fears. She was afraid to admit her fear even to herself, let alone share it with anyone else. Jessica asked Liam not to tell anyone what had happened. Liam, seeing how hard it was for her, agreed, even though he knew deep down that keeping it a secret would be wrong. Months passed, and Jessica tried to forget what had happened. She was back to her normal life, but her heart was broken. Every day she fought with herself, trying to convince herself that everything happened by accident, that it wasn't her fault. But her mind kept going back to that night, to the moment she saw the blood. That image haunted her, haunting her day and night. Life went on as usual, and everything seemed to be slowly returning to normal. But soon Liam's brother and his wife had their first child. It was a joyous occasion for the whole family. Jessica was genuinely happy for them, but every time she saw her newborn nephew, her heart clenched with pain. She couldn't get rid of the thought that she could have a baby boy like that right now, too, if things had turned out differently. Every day, the pressure from the family increased. Family and friends started asking questions about when she and Liam would have children. At first, Jessica tried to answer evasively, hoping to be left alone, but the more time passed, the more insistent the questions became. Her patience was wearing thin, and the pain she hid inside became unbearable. Every question about the children hit her in the gut, reminding her of what she had lost. It culminated in a family dinner where all the loved ones were gathered. The evening began quietly, but Jessica could feel the tension. She knew questions would follow again, but she was unprepared for what happened next. One of the relatives, with a smile on his face, asked when she and Liam would decide to have a baby. That question was the last straw for Jessica. Unable to bear it, she abruptly replied, "Well, it's hard to want to get pregnant after a miscarriage." These words hung in the air like thunder. There was dead silence in the room. All eyes were on Jessica, and her mother-in-law, shocked by what she had heard, looked as if she had been doused with ice water. She asked with hurt and pain in her voice why Jessica hadn't said anything earlier. Her resentment was understandable. She had lost the opportunity to support her daughter-in-law in her time of need, and now she felt alienated and unwanted. Jessica, realizing what she had said, felt panic overwhelm her. Unable to bear the strain, she stood up and left the room, heading for the car. Liam, realizing what had happened, hurried after her. In the car, Jessica sat, holding back tears, unable to cope with the storm of emotions. Liam sat next to her and put his arm around her, trying to comfort her, but she couldn't find any solace. At home, when the tension eased a little, Liam tried to talk to Jessica. He realized that they had both made a mistake in choosing to cover up what had happened. He told her that maybe they should have told everything sooner, especially to his mother, who had gone through a similar grief herself and could have been supportive. But Jessica, still racked with guilt, only replied that she couldn't tell him because she wasn't ready. She was ashamed and hurt, and she didn't know how to deal with those feelings. That night was a turning point for them. Jessica realized that her pain wasn't going to go away on its own, that she needed to talk about what she was feeling, but it was so hard to even admit to herself that her state of mind was far from normal. Liam, on the other hand, realized that his wife was suffering more than he'd realized, and that she needed the support he couldn't give her, leaving her alone with her fears and doubts. As the weeks passed, Jessica slowly began to open up to Liam. She told him about her fears, about how hard it had been for her all along. Liam, in turn, shared his worries, feeling that he had failed in his role as protector and support. It wasn't easy for both of them to admit their weaknesses, but the process was necessary to begin to heal the wounds. Over time, Jessica realized that she needed more than just talking to Liam. She began seeing a therapist who helped her sort through her feelings, find a way to cope with her loss, and stop blaming herself for what had happened. It was a long and difficult journey, but each step brought her relief. Liam supported her along the way, despite his own struggles and doubts. He knew that they would both have to learn to live with the pain and find a way to move on. It was over a year before Jessica and Liam felt ready to think about having children again. The process was filled with fear and doubt, but they both realized that they couldn't let the past ruin their dreams for the future. They began to plan for their future with caution, but also with renewed hope. This journey of healing made them stronger and closer to each other. Now, looking back, Jessica and Liam realized that their story is a story about the importance of talking about their feelings, sharing their pain, and supporting each other through difficult moments. They know that the road to happiness is often thorny, but they are willing to walk it together no matter what. Subscribe to my channel to listen to exciting audio stories from people's lives every day. We offer you unique stories that will touch your heart. Tell your friends about us and let them immerse themselves in the world of interesting stories too.